welcome to Culture Alchemy, where we do a deep dive into film, TV, music, and the stories and trends lighting up the group chat. We'll discuss what it means, why it matters, and how it shapes us. I'm Antoinette.
And I'm Drew. Each week we've got pop culture's hottest takes served fresh. We are turning pop culture into pure gold. This is Culture Alchemy.
Hey everyone, we're back again to talk White Lotus, this time season 3. So Andrew, where do you want to start?
That's a great question. So I would say the first season of White Lotus was, I think the main theme was about like classism and like colonialism, I would say. And then the second season, I feel like one of the main themes was like sex, like sexuality. It seems like most of the characters in every scene, like, it had to do with sex. So then I think this season, yes, there is that too in it. Like those themes are in it for sure. But I think the overall like theme of this season is spirituality. And they really touched on that in Thailand and local culture of Thailand, and spirituality was an arching theme in this season. Yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah, I think spirituality was a huge theme this season. It's hard to ignore it. And yeah, I love the choice of Thailand because the Buddhist culture really, really lends to so many wonderful, not only like potential scenarios, but then it also does give us a lot of really, I think, memorable quotes too. I'm going to get into that a little bit later, but some of my favorite quotes as well. I think it could only be my favorite quotes because of the setting and how they were said.
I agree. And I'm gonna guess who said those quotes. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about here.
Yeah. Actually, we just dive into it. We're talking about
Parker Posey.
Yeah. The matriarch of the Ratliff family, the gift that keeps on giving. Frankly, she just had so many bangers throughout the whole series. If I'm going to talk about favorite quotes, and honestly, I've hit 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4 of them here. She said 3 out of the 4.
Wow.
Yeah, she said 3 out of the 4. Let's set this scene here. So obviously, again, as with our other podcast on White Lotus, major spoiler alert. If you haven't watched it, highly recommend you do. But of course, feel free to hang with us if you want to find out what happens in advance, because we're going to spoil it. Up, down, left, right. And we are in Thailand, as you said, Drew. We're at another White Lotus resort with a whole new cast of characters. Part of that cast of characters includes the Ratliff family. So we've got our patriarch, Tim Ratliff, the mother, Victoria. We have the son, Saxon, the youngest boy, Lachlan. And we also have the daughter, Piper, who's brought the family there under the guise of wanting to meet with somebody related to her graduate school studies, which we later find out is not the case, but that's at least how they all get to Thailand. And then we also have some other characters at the resort this time around, some returnees as well as some new. We've got Rick and Chelsea. So they are our couple, and they have a slight age difference between the two. We'll get into the dynamics between them later because they were fascinating. And then we've got our 3 friends from, I guess, elementary, high school, longtime friends who've come on vacation. One of the 3 is a movie star. And then our returnees, of course, we've got some other ones as well who work at the resort. And our returnees, Belinda, who was in the first season, and Greg, the only character who's been in all 3 seasons. So here we go. That's the main cast of characters that are at the White Lotus in Thailand this time around. So let's start, since we went into the Ratliffs. Let's hang out with them for a bit. So what are your thoughts on the Ratliff family?
Yeah, where do I begin? So very it's obviously like with the father, it's very mysterious, what's going on with him. Like he's unhinged. Okay. Why is he so unhinged? We later found out why. But first off, the first thing I noticed with the family is that the weird, like the dynamic between like the brother and sister was a little like from the first episode when they're, I think she says, no, the brother says like, can I sleep with you in the same bed? And from the first
Oh, that's
episode,
right.
I feel like I think that was in the first episode. Yeah, I was like, well, that's a little weird, you know. It was just the closeness of the brother and sister. I thought that's the first thing I noticed about the family, the younger brother and the sister.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
and so that's the first thing I noticed, and I also, why is what's wrong with the father, and then Patrick Schwarzenegger, what's his name?
Yeah. Saxon.
Yeah, Saxon. Yeah, so the dynamic between him and his brother, this toxic male, giving him that type of advice, and so that was interesting to me as well. Yeah,
Yeah. I thought that was a good call, like on picking up on the weird kind of dynamic.
dynamic between the younger brother.
You're
and
right.
sister.
I kind of forgot about that. So like when we first get there, Lachlan and Piper have that kind of exchange. They seem to be almost like a little bit codependent on each other.
Yeah,
That's how I saw that.
that's the first thing I noticed, which I was like, whoa, that's
Yeah, you're right. You're very right about that. I actually I sort of dismissed it, like thought, okay, that's a little odd, but whatever. What I was more I more zeroed in on is the dynamic between Lachlan and Saxon. Because when they ended up sharing a room, actually sharing a room,
yeah.
I don't know, is this something that you do with your bro? Like, is this normal? To me, I kind of thought it was odd that Saxon would go again. Mike White likes to show us a lot in bathrooms, but like Saxon goes to the bathroom to go masturbate and like he takes his laptop in, but he leaves the door open and he's doing that like with his brother, just kind of watching him.
Yeah, that's no, that's not something that happens. It doesn't happen between me and my brother, that's for sure, and I'm sure it doesn't happen with a lot of brothers. That's not a thing.
Okay, I was like, brother.
Yeah, that is also that's something which is was a different dynamic as well. There, I don't know what that was about. It's almost like he's trying to like just give him advice, and like he's very sexual too, Saxon.
Yeah.
And so he's all about, trying to hook up with a girl, and he's trying to make his younger brother kind of like live that life as well. Yeah. Push him in that direction, I should say.
Yeah. Make him a man.
Yeah,
Toughen him up.
man, exactly. Yeah.
So
That's what a man does.
Yeah.
That's the kind of masculinity that Saxon's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting to see that in the same family, like Saxon representing that sort of toxic masculinity, sort of aggro shit. And then you've got like Lachlan, seems almost a little bit more in contrast to Saxon. He seemed a little bit more almost effeminate, like a little bit more docile.
Introvert.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely codependent on his sister as well, Piper. So it's like the two like different masculinities contrast each other, which is interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
And there's a lot of contrast in this family too, because Piper, we find out why she brought her family there. She wants to explore her spirituality. She wants to stay there at the resort and learn the principles of Buddhism, which is in contrast to the mom, who is not about the Buddhist life. That's for sure.
She loves her lorazepam.
Yeah, she's not about that life. So I thought that was very interesting as well.
Yeah, it's a really interesting family. You're right. They all have their own agendas. They're there because of Piper.
Yeah.
Piper is like the nucleus that brings them together, but they all have their own separate agendas for being there. And I think like Saxon's clearly is like, let me get laid while I'm here. That's clearly his. And obviously impressing his father. I can see that dynamic too, that he's really got his identity tied into, who he is as a successful businessman as well. Like that's really important for us to know that too, because then when we find out that the father is potentially struggling with this news back home that the business is actually in grave danger and that they're potentially going to lose all of their wealth. He's the only one who knows that throughout the whole season. So I think, yeah, spirituality is a huge theme and one that you had brought up on a previous podcast around identity
Hmm.
and identity both being a cause of pride or pain, like identity in this case. For many of them, they're struggling to figure out who am I, and I could see that reflected in almost every member of the family. Victoria is a different story. I feel like where we lost Tanya's comic relief, I feel Victoria brought it like in spades. Like she kind of more than made up for it.
Yeah.
And in a way, when I first started watching it, I wasn't sure if maybe Victoria was actually smarter than she let on, like if she was smart as a fox and was playing dumb, like if she knew something was happening back home, because she kept making comments throughout the show that just seemed to be pouring salt into like the father's wound, or she would like make comments when he was going through, all the struggles of keeping the secret of everything happening back home. It's like she'd make comments about the fact that you're such a good man, we're so lucky. Like I can't imagine losing all of her wealth. I would just rather die. Like she
Hmm.
makes so many comments that I thought, does she know what's going on, or is Mike White just using her as this like perfect device to create this tension? But that character, obviously, we've spoken about her already for for the beginning of the podcast, how hilarious she was. Um, One of my favorite characters. I think she was fantastic, and definitely, yeah, made the Ratliff family scenes like so much more
Yeah,
interesting.
because she says at one point, if we did lose everything, I don't know if I'd want to live, right? So, it's-
Which, yeah, I mean, she couldn't have said it at a better and or worse time.
and Saxon says a similar thing as well.
Yeah,
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 in later episodes.
yeah. So there's a lot of things that are very clear to me about how they perceive themselves in terms of their own identities at the beginning. And then what's interesting about that family is watching the story arc, because they all, I think, start in one place and then end in another.
Yeah,
So they
that
are
is
very
very
interesting.
well said because in the first couple episodes, I think it might have been the first episode, there's an employee at the resort who says, you will be an entirely different person by the end of this trip.
Oh,
And a
wow.
lot of the people, a lot of the characters in this season are completely different at the end,
Yeah.
including the father.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Complete 180. And maybe that speaks to the spirituality theme that,
yeah.
you mentioned, is that there is that sort of idea of finding oneself, going on the spiritual journey. So even though they may have started in one place, and even in Piper's very literal case, she
Okay.
wasn't really there for the right reasons. At the end of the day, like she kind of started off looking like a martyr. And
Yeah,
then by the end of it, you kind of look at her a little bit more side-eyed.
yeah.
So it was interesting to see that evolution. Like for example, Saxon. What were your thoughts on Saxon? Because I have a very hot take on him.
Saxon is well, he does change for the
Mm.
during the season. He he in the first few episodes, he's like that older brother. He's the he's the man. He's trying to teach his brother how to be a man. This is what a man does, and it's that toxic masculine like we were talking about. And but it's also I see like insecurity as the
Mm.
season goes on. Especially when I think he's talking to Greg's girlfriend
Yeah. Oh yes,
who
yes.
kind of puts him in his place. And then in the later episodes, there's a situation that happens between him and his brother, which puts him in, he's a bit uh, embarrassed by that.
Oh.
Yeah, so I feel like he is insecure but he just puts up this like bravado, like as this alpha male. And he's also defined by his career too. He says to his dad, when they're having the conversation that like this he identifies as his career and making money. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's kind of what I was saying before about like they are very much wrapped into this idea of like this this thing, this career, this is who I am. Like,
Yeah.
and so if you lose the wealth, if you lose the career, then who am I?
You're nothing
Yeah.
without this.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is actually, I mean, it's very relatable.
It
It's
is.
very
Yeah.
relatable. Right. And I think a lot of people do see themselves, especially in the Canadian or North American context, like one of the first questions anybody will ask you is, what do you do? Like we immediately want to know what someone does, and it tells us a lot about many things. It gives us an idea of potentially, well, I mean, their level of income. Maybe we're assessing like what kind of personality or traits they may have. It tells me about education. Like there's a lot of things that we assess from that, and so we do take a lot of our identity from that. So it's a very relatable thing. And I really do agree with you when you say that Saxon was actually very insecure. I think it's very, very obvious to me, and more so when he does actually end up meeting the two girls. So we do have this other group of people that we mentioned earlier that are also staying at the White Lotus who end up connecting with Saxon and the brother Lockie. So I actually think when Chelsea and Saxon connect towards the end of the show, he has changed. And I do believe that I actually believe that he liked her. He liked Chelsea, and probably because what he said at the beginning, like she dislikes me so much that it's kind of turning me on.
Yeah.
And like maybe he wants what he can't have. But I think because he does have this sort of about face, like spiritually at the end, um, I think it's I look at him more with more empathy, Saxon. Like I actually liked the character by the end.
Mm-hmm.
Really didn't like him at the beginning.
I
I was
didn't
like,
like him at
oh, what a
all.
douchebag,
Yeah.
man. Like,
Yeah.
ugh, grade A douchebag.
The worst. Yeah.
Ugh. And then, yeah, absolutely. And then by the end, it's like, yeah, I actually like this character. I feel empathy for him. And I would love to see where he ends up in the end. Like, what happens when they get home? Like, for you, how did you feel about how I mean, we're jumping all over the place here, but like, I think that's the way we're going to have to approach this. Season 3 ended with the Ratliffs on the boat, sailing back, presumably to shore to get onto a plane where they're going to touch down and find out their lives are, I mean, completely, well, life as they knew it, anyways,
Mm-hmm.
is completely over. So, how did you feel about the ending for that family?
I thought it was I thought it was a great ending
Yeah.
for the family. Yeah, they've changed a lot since they arrived at the resort. You know, I felt like it was almost like there's a lot of shots of the water during this
Mm.
season, and the water symbolizes like a rebirth. So I feel like them looking at the water, traveling back from this resort, they're changed now. It's almost like it's a rebirth. It's a new beginning for all of them.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I really liked because they went through it, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. The water rebirth, like a baptism of
Yeah,
sorts and stuff.
yeah, baptism of sorts.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just, I think it's a really good point. The way that the, the season kind of ended for the Ratliffs, I was satisfied with it as well. I thought it made sense. I know some people were not and felt like they wanted to see the reaction of the family. So we want to see them actually find out that they're broke. I didn't necessarily need to see it myself, actually. I think to your point,
That's interesting. Yeah.
yeah, that was one of the gripes. So I should say that there have been a lot of different reactions to season 3. Some people have really enjoyed it. Some people have said it's the worst season yet. And I think a big part of some of the gripes around season 3 are the characters. People were not necessarily as enamored with the characters in season 3 as they were in previous. And definitely one of the plot points that I think fell short for some people was the family. Like there were a lot of things that I think people wanted to see at the end. What I have heard is some people have said like, what gives? Like, I want to see the family actually react to losing the money, or when they get the phones back.
Really?
Let's see them look at the phone. We want more. Like, what was the point of taking us here if we're not going to get to see the payoff, right? That was something I had heard from people, and some of the conveniences around the family, some of this sort of things that probably shouldn't have happened, but happened to move the story along. So, for example, most of the gripes I heard, although there are some other ones as well, with other characters, but the fact that the son, Lockie, drank the poison smoothie. Like, why would he just go and drink the leftover smoothie from the next day? A lot of people were upset with that too, thinking like, well, come in, like White, that's kind of lazy writing, but I can defend it.
Oh, really? Yeah,
I can
I
defend
did
it.
wonder that. Why was he drinking it? Yeah.
Okay. So here's how I reconciled that in my own mind. I was thinking, well, the night before, the father, of course, as one does, starts making a bunch of pina coladas for your family
Yeah.
when you've never had that drink in your life. I would be like, okay, dad's probably poisoning us or something. I would actually have thought that. But anyway, he makes a round of poison coladas for the whole family, and doesn't give it to Lockie. In fact, he's adamant, like, you are not drinking it. Because he was so adamant that you're not going to even try this drink. This is not for you.
Yeah.
The next day, when you walk in and you see that there's a little bit of the drink left in the blender, and you're going to make one of the protein shakes, then it did make sense to me that he would use it, because, like, oh, he wants to try it.
He wants to try that. Yeah,
Right.
because he was told not to.
Right. So
Yeah.
that makes sense, because he's just seeing what was left over. It's like, oh, it's kind of a little odd that he wouldn't clean it out, but it makes sense for this character because he was deprived it the night before. So
Yeah.
I was fine with that.
He wanted to try it. Yeah.
Yeah. It was the forbidden fruit, quite literally.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I got that. I was down with that. That was fine. But yeah, I mean, there were some major things this season that some people were not fans of. So I found this season generally, like, the conversation around it was a little bit divisive. Some people were not fans of this season overall. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? Like, is that just me, or that was my read anyways, that people were lukewarm on this one?
I was lukewarm at the beginning. Yeah, like I agree with the fans as far as the characters. I really didn't like any of the characters at the start,
Okay.
including the family.
Okay.
I didn't. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this season, but I felt like it was like a slow burn this season.
Definitely.
As it started getting going, which it did, then I was more intrigued, and I started to like more of the characters, specifically two characters, which we can talk about,
Let's get into it.
which are definitely two of my favorite from this season. Amy Lou Wood as Chelsea, and Walter Goggins as Rick. Yeah,
Love and love.
I love their storyline too. Yeah.
So tell me more, because
Before we get into that though, like, how did you feel about the season? Were you like the fans that were divisive about it, or?
I liked the season a lot, actually,
Yeah.
from the start.
Oh, from the very
From the
first
very
episode. Okay.
From the very start,
I didn't
maybe.
know what to make of it at the first episode. I was like, I don't know if I'm
See,
like it.
I totally understand that reaction. It was definitely slow. Like, there were a couple of episodes even where I was like, huh,
Yeah.
what? That didn't really move the story much. But the thing is, I have faith in Mike White, and because I have faith in Mike White's storytelling, and I know that it's going to pay off. There's nothing that he's putting in there that's wasted. I just feel like that's the kind of storyteller he is. And so I'm willing to rock with him a couple episodes, even if there's not that much happening. But I'm also the girl that, like, I kind of love TV and movie shows where there's like nothing happening. It's like a group of people just walking around for 2 hours, just having dialogue. And I'm down with that. So I may not be, I may have a little more patience for that.
Yeah.
I also think, and I heard Mike White say this, which I thought was just amazing. At the end of the season, when he was being interviewed about, like, I guess, the reception that he had for the whole season, he's very aware that people were like, about it.
Oh,
he's
really?
very aware of that. And at one point he was talking to some other podcast hosts about the whole idea of it was too slow. And he was kind of like, well, okay, I tell stories a certain way. If you don't like how I tell stories, then don't get into bed with me. Like, I'm edging you. It's going to pay off. And I just thought,
And it does pay off.
and it does pay off,
Yeah.
right? So he knows what he's doing, and obviously,
Yeah.
you know, it's a really interesting, maybe for some even crass analogy, but I get it because he's telling a story, he's building to something,
Yeah.
and it's like I actually found that I was really into it from the start, but
Okay.
also I think it was the location. I think just like the second season had Italy, you know, the first Hawaii, but it's like any tropical place to me. It didn't really have um, distinctly a feeling for me that I could latch onto. But I have been to Thailand before and I've spent time there. And he really nailed a lot of aspects of the culture. And I think that also pulled me in as well too, is that I was really interested in like, what's he going to do here? Because Thailand does have a and I don't know any other way to say it, but Thailand does have a reputation for obviously it's the land of thousand smiles, really friendly, kind people, but also some things that Mike White does point to throughout this series that are well known, confusing points about the culture, or just downright potentially like strange or puzzling, if you will. So I think with Thailand, you've got the potential to get into some really seedy situations and for there to be, yeah, just a really explosive clash between what we were talking about before and like the Buddhist culture, the very calm, serene, with how we obviously start out, which is episode 1. Within the first 2 minutes, there's a massive shootout. So we know some serious stuff is going to go down. You know, and I think because I knew it was going to be high body count as well, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm ready. I'm ready to like take the ride with you and the journey because I knew it was going to go somewhere. So yeah, I liked it from the jump, but I can understand coming off the last 2 seasons, people were probably more accustomed to seeing maybe a different pacing. And in my mind, he did Thailand right. He did exactly the pacing that made sense for the story that he wanted to tell.
And just tying into Buddhism, you know, which is embedded in Thailand culture, Lachlan and Piper in a later episode, they're at the monastery with the monks, and he's talking about Buddhism is very much tied to meditation, and what meditation is about is letting go of thoughts that consume you. And one of the main characters, one of my favorite characters, is Rick, is consumed with getting revenge, right? And that's what drives him throughout the whole season. And he's unhinged.
Yeah, he is.
Especially in one episode with the snakes. That episode, I had to ask you about this. Why did he let go of this? Why did he uncage the snake?
Yeah, okay.
I didn't understand that when I watched it.
Yeah. So that's the episode where, okay, so he goes to Bangkok.
He goes to see like the local attraction, which is the reptile like exhibition. Yeah.
So they've got all these venomous snakes basically in captivity. And Chelsea's there. Right.
Yeah.
And so Rick, I think he was high at the time.
Yeah,
right?
he was definitely on something.
And he decided to like release the snakes and set them free. Okay, so I don't know if this is what Mike intended with this scene, but I actually saw that scene as Rick seeing himself as the snakes.
Okay. He felt like he was caged.
Yes, he felt like he was caged. I feel like snakes generally are, often maligned. And these snakes were, they were poisonous snakes. So they were seen as these like kind of deadly things that could be toyed and played with. They were like an exhibition. And I think in that moment, I personally feel like he saw himself and he just didn't think it was right to he wanted to free himself from what you were talking about earlier, like this idea that he was he's been trapped in a prison of his own making this whole time while he's been consumed with this rage over the person who kills his father or who he thinks killed his father. Even though that's a bit of a stretch, in seeing something else in captivity and just thinking about how that made him feel or the feelings that came up with that, I think he just literally was like, I've got to set them free. This doesn't make any sense. But I think it was actually he was trying to do that for himself.
Yeah.
maybe a stretch, but yeah, that's how I saw that
I
scene.
think
It's
that's
just,
fair. He was trying to free himself, but he was just consumed by this
yeah,
revenge, right?
yeah.
And by the way, when I go to Thailand, I am not doing the snake excursion.
Well, you
Okay,
say that now, but
I
I
do
mean,
not like snakes. I'm sure there's a lot of great excursions to do, activities in Thailand, but definitely not doing this snake show.
yeah,
Yeah,
maybe not kind of venomous ones too.
yeah.
That's
I
just not
think I'm good. I
something
think I'll
you
do
stick with the
something.
ping pong show.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Right.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I'm surprised we didn't see, but maybe that would have been too on the nose. I think that was really interesting that you bring up that scene because it was one that at first I was a little bit puzzled by, but I also think additionally, like obviously it provided an opportunity for
Hmm.
Chelsea to also get bitten and
Yeah,
for that to be uh, one or the second uh, kind of unfortunate
yeah,
event, right? And she did say early on that this always comes in threes.
yeah,
So I think getting back also to the point around the pacing, I think this was another thing that Mike
yeah.
might use to show us that, hey, always comes in threes. Here's the second.
Foreshadowing, right?
Definitely.
What happens in the end, and
Definitely.
also the principle of Buddhism is nonviolence, and
Right.
he's about the violence.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. So super jarring juxtaposition between
yeah,
like what he's about and the general theme of the show. And I'm now also thinking about the snakes, like just how, you were saying like I'm not about them. I'm not really a fan of snakes. Not a lot of people, some people are. I should
mhm,
say there are people out there, I'm sure, they can be like, no, I love snakes. I have a snake. Like I grew up with a family, I used to babysit their kid and they had a snake. And it was not really for me like the kind of thing I'd want to have as a pet, but people do love snakes, but they're very polarizing and they are associated with a lot of things, including, I think, even in like Christian culture, I think about snakes as maybe being associated with temptation,
yeah,
with in some cases evil, kind of the way they move, this sort of it makes sense as well too that again like Rick would be the one to unleash the snakes and then brings this misfortune on to Chelsea.
yeah,
It's like it's as we know later on when we get to the final episode and Chelsea talks about the fact that the two of them are tied together, they're bonded together. It's like this idea of amor fati, that their fates are linked. Then seeing Rick go on self-destruct mode pretty much from the minute he gets to Bangkok,
mhm,
you just know, like to your point, there's major foreshadowing there. So I think it was a really interesting scene that maybe at first was a little strange to me, but then I realized like actually it was a really effective scene because it showed us so many dynamics with also Rick and Chelsea. Because when she did get bitten, he did freak out. Like he cares about her a lot. That's when I
he
realized,
does,
okay,
yeah.
he really does care for her because he flipped out when he realized, oh no, I think I've actually hurt her, right?
At first, I wasn't sure what the dynamic of the relationship was. I didn't see it. I could see that she, was, um, you know, in love with him.
Yeah.
You can see that pretty
Yeah.
early on, but I didn't really understand what he thought of her.
Yeah, what's his
Yeah,
deal?
yeah,
Like, does he like her?
yeah. Does he even
Because
like her?
I
Yeah,
was so puzzled because the
yeah,
first scene we see of them, they're on the boat together, and it's like this older, gentleman with this like younger pretty girl, and it's like,
yeah.
and it seems almost like, does he, is he like,
He just seems more annoyed by her.
yeah,
Like,
he just wants her to scram, like it's
yeah,
just like
exactly.
this,
Like
like
he has this.
like she's tagging along or like this like maybe
Yeah,
groupie that he can't shake or something.
yeah.
That's the vibe, and then as well, let me ask you this. We just talked about the snake scene.
Hmm.
Obviously, when she gets injured, he freaks out. He follows her to the kind of hospital to get her help. And so obviously, we see that he cares there. But was there another moment for you where it clicked for you that, oh, this relationship is more than meets the eye? Like, did you feel like there was any other moment where you recognized that I think Rick also cares about her or that the partnership was deeper, or maybe not. Maybe there was no moment. I don't know.
I just think as the season went on, I saw the closeness of them, and
Okay.
like that he really did care about her, and he didn't want her to get in the way as well. He wanted to take her out of the danger, and he ended up
Mm,
putting her in danger in the end. And what I really saw, I forget which episode it was, but when closer to the end, when she's trying to calm him down, and this, like, it's almost like she was his safe space and she knew how to calm him down.
Yep.
I thought that was a really beautiful scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that might be the scene that I was
Yeah.
going to point to as well, because that there was that moment where I recognized, oh, okay, this is a much deeper relationship than I
Mhm.
realized,
Yeah.
and that their history goes deeper than I realized. Like,
Yeah.
I felt the same. I felt there was like,
It's almost like in the earlier scene when we talked
mm,
about like these poisonous snakes,
yeah.
how can you deal with these poisonous snakes? There's a snake charmer, and she is his snake charmer.
Oh,
That's what I felt like.
I
Yeah.
oh, look at you! I love that.
Closing that loop.
Chelsea the snake charmer. I
Yeah, she's
love
like the
that.
snake charmer.
And
Yeah.
she is charming. She
Yeah.
actually, I wrote down my favorite characters, and she is definitely one of them. And of course, I would love Chelsea. Chelsea is my astrology girl. Chelsea is like, very spiritual,
Hmm.
very, I mean, I could see some people seeing her.
I didn't know what to make of her at
Yeah.
first. Yeah.
Yeah, let me be comes off a little woo woo, a little bit like maybe even a little ditzy at first, but I see the depth, the like profound
Yeah.
depth of her soul and like how she wants to see such good for the world. But also
She's
twist,
a great character. Yeah.
fantastic character. She's one that whose backstory I'm so fascinated by because
Huh.
even though I'm saying all of this, and she was like, if not my favorite, one of my favorite characters, um, she's obviously with a tortured soul in Rick. So it
Yeah.
makes me wonder what she's working with.
Hmm.
Because even though we're looking at Rick the whole time and wondering, like, what is this guy's deal? Like, what
Yeah.
is his damage? You have to ask yourself if
He's
she
talking to
was
his demons. Yeah.
totally a lot of demons, and if, like, as you say, she's the snake charmer, if she's like the exorcist, like her role to fix him or to exorcise those demons, there must be something in her backstory as well too that leads her to be attracted to or drawn to that. And I, interestingly enough, toward the end of the season when people were speculating online about who was going to die, there was an interview that went out with Amy Lee Wood, who plays Chelsea, and she did talk a little bit about her character, but she talked a little bit about her character under like the guise of people really love Chelsea and respond to Rick as if Rick is the problem. And I think even she said, no, you got to look at Chelsea, the type of woman that would be drawn to that type of man.
Yeah.
Chelsea is also just as damaged in a way.
Yeah.
It's just that she's going about trying to fix him. And in that, I think maybe penultimate episode or last episode, she talks about this, like, I think she's talking to, I want to say Chloe, to her friend Chloe
Hmm.
about, you know, oh no, maybe it's someone else, but she basically gives this like amazing speech where she's like, he's like, she's saying, I'm hope, and something to that effect, like he's
Hmm.
despair, right? And it's a
Okay.
battle between him and I, and hope and despair, and who's going to win? So she sees him as this almost this thing that she has to rescue. So she's coming from a place, in my opinion, hearing something like that, that's not super healthy, right? It's not necessarily the healthiest attitude. It's also codependent. It's
Hmm.
also, she's placing this rescuer vibe out there as her identity. That's what she's there to do, to save this
Yeah.
guy. So her fate tied to him. If he's a sinking ship, you know right away, like, oh my God, she's trying to save this guy who's on self-destruct mode.
Hmm.
It's clearly this is not going to work out well for her. So I had my eye on her from very early on that she might be in the body count, and makes it even more tragic when we do find out what happens, because she is such a lovely person, is such a lovely
That
girl.
was heartbreaking. Yeah.
It really, really was. It really, really was. And yeah, I think that relationship was so fascinating because it did have a much deeper, um, yeah, much deeper roots than I thought. I think that they both did care for each other. It was just a very confusing dynamic to kind of figure out.
Hmm.
But there was a scene too, before we do move on, there was a scene where, um, in addition to what you said about like she was a safe space, there was a scene as where I kind of realized, oh, this is more than what I thought it was. Like the first time I saw them actually, like when they were intimate,
Yeah.
I thought, oh, like the way they entered that scene, and like, it was not the way that a man, I think anyways, would treat a woman who meant nothing to him. It was a very interesting way to end that episode, because then it kind of pulled the rug out from you if you were thinking she was the one kind of following him around like a lost puppy. It's like, no, I think to your point,
Yeah.
he does get something from that relationship. She is a safe space for him and is his partner, but
Yeah.
he's so consumed with his rage and like his vendetta mission that like I think he really could not, to Chelsea's point later on in the series, like stop worrying about the love he didn't get in childhood and look at the love that like she's offering him, like that's right in front of you. It was really beautiful to watch them, and so much more tragic at the end because of it. Yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah, that's well put. Yeah. So we should talk about. Do you want to talk about the? I guess for the next characters we haven't even touched on
Let's go.
is the three friends.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the girls. So we got
Jacqueline,
yes,
we got Kate,
yes,
and Laurie.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jacqueline, Miss Hollywood. Okay. Kate, I guess, Queen Supreme of the PTA, and then Carrie, the uber successful career woman with the marriage that's just fallen apart.
On a girls' trip.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thoughts?
So what are my thoughts? They had their dynamic was very interesting. Like they were very like they would lie to each other. They were very catty with each other. I feel like they would they had a history together since they've been friends for a long time, you see, and but it's just like it was just the dynamic was very weird to me at first. You see them later get realize their friendship, how important it is to each other, but you realize there's a lot of like hostility towards each other as well, and and they do lie to each other sometimes, and also they have an interesting history. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as
is this the dynamic? Like, is this a common dynamic between girls groups?
Yeah, I don't want to say it is, because I think
like there's jealousy there at one point. There's a lot of things happening between these three girls.
I think there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of history between them.
Yeah.
A lot of probably things left unsaid as well. I will say that the reason why I believe people kind of resonated, if at all, with the three characters, or why these three characters just seemed very out of the three, actually, I kind of forgot about them because they, until things started developing with the rest of the crew, with Valentine and his crew, I kind of forgot about them. And actually, if anything, that was the three that I was like, I don't need to see much of this. Let's move on from this. Maybe because I was like, I've lived this. I don't need to see this.
Yeah.
Right. So I actually do think there are some real dynamics there between women and how we're socialized. And especially if, they're long friends. You've got that long history where you've seen each other through trials and tribulations, which is really bonding. You've also, each other's quirks, the good and the bad and the ugly, and you love each other anyway. But I think the stage of life that they were all in, it's complicated by the fact that Jacqueline is a famous Hollywood ingenue. So it's like she has wealth, power, attention. Maybe she's like, from what I perceived anyways as well too, in a uniquely triggering position for someone like, say, Laurie, who just got divorced, has this great career, but maybe her personal life, she's longing for something that she's not getting. So then you sort of have this competition. That's the element that I think does come into the competition. Even though I hate to say that, and I think of my longest girlfriends, I think the reason why I'm friends with them is because I don't feel that element of competition. We support each other. But do I feel like I've ever had that comparison game with female friends? Oh, for sure.
A lot of competition.
For sure. For sure. And I think that's why this particular group of people was so fascinating, because they represented something that I could recognize in female friendships, but also they're at a very unique stage of their lives in their friendships. Like I'm assuming they're kind of maybe in their 40s now. They're, you know, seeing each other after some time apart. So there's that initial, and I've done this. I've traveled like with friends I haven't seen in a while, and
they haven't traveled. They haven't seen each other in a while. It seems like,
and so they're trying to catch up, but also everyone is again struggling with identity.
Yeah.
Right. And who am I? And so you have the identity of your crew who knew you back in the day, and then the person maybe you become, or the person you want to be seen as. But like you get together with your crew, it's kind of like you get together with your family. You fall into that dynamic of like who you were before. And so that I think becomes an issue here. Right.
And it happens too, like even with some of my friends too, where like, since I know them since high school, that they still, the way they talk to me is the same way they talk to me since high school.
Right.
But I'm not the same person.
Right.
I was.
Right.
I'm a completely different person from when I was in high school, but they're, you know, that's the way they talk to me. And it's the same way. And I feel like maybe that's, same way with these three.
Totally. You slip right back into the dynamic. And I think even you see,
even though they're different people at that point.
Absolutely. Absolutely different people.
Run a lot. Yeah.
And I think that's part of the tension, right? So like, I don't remember specifically when they say it, but there's a certain point, each one of them makes a comment about the other person being a certain way because of what you just said. Like you're relating to them as you were when you knew them back in the day. And and so they themselves don't even recognize themselves in the comments that their friends made. Like one of them that kind of stands out to me is this idea of, I think it was Lori made some innocent comment about Jacqueline being like, you know, of course we dressed up in this costume where we all had to put on this joint costume. And of course you were the head. You were the head of like, you know, the costume. And Jacqueline kind of looks at them like, what do you mean? Of course I was the head, because in her mind, she's thinking, she doesn't understand how they're perceiving her as being like, well, you were the one who always had the attention, or like, you know, you were like the it girl. That's how I perceive the three of them. Like, and nothing has changed. So then that's why I think it really like just messes with Lori's pride when Jacqueline sleeps with Valentine.
And that's what I was going to ask you.
Because
why don't you think she admitted that?
Pride.
Yeah, was it a
pride thing?
Okay.
Pride, I think, is.
I was confused about that. I was like, why didn't she just tell her? Yeah.
Pride and shame are really.
Yeah, because she knew that Lori liked him, right? Yeah.
I mean, she had to have, and I don't think even that Jacqueline
maybe
did it.
And it was a competitive thing too, probably, more the appeal of him as well.
You know, I'm gonna throw Jacqueline a bone here. I don't even think that she even did that intentionally. I don't even think she even did that like intentionally. I think she was just kind of like,
just attracted to him.
Yeah, and like he's or initially when she was, you know, kind of trying to put Lori in Valentine's sight, she probably herself was like, I want him. I can't have him. So she's projecting all this desire onto Lori. If I can't have him, like, you may as well bone him.
Yeah.
So like maybe that was what happened there. And then she obviously had her pride hurt. She called her boyfriend. The boyfriend wasn't responding to her. She felt like, I'm not getting any attention. So, okay, well, that's fine. You're going to go do your thing. I'm going to do mine. So Jacqueline obviously does have some like, the maturity level is questionable, right? Like the way she responded in that way. And, you know, probably if you know, I'm just reading the room here, like she may have, again, been used to getting attention for her beauty and her sexuality, sensuality. So that trend just happened to continue in Thailand, you know? So they all brought their stuff from the friendship from before right to Thailand. Nothing changed. They're just in a different location trying to figure out how do we now relate to each other in this new context. And then, of course, the wealth and the fame that Jacqueline has also probably is just like gas on the whole situation because it gives them access that they wouldn't necessarily have had. Because think about if this was just this is a normal broad. Like she's not getting the penthouse suite, like the full work. She's not getting the owner offering up Valentine to them. Right? Because she, if I recall, the first episode, Sritala, the co-owner of the Lotus, she brings out Valentine because Valentine is like her prize, like masseuse, like, you know, and she knows that he's the one that obviously all the women want. So it was like she was offering this guy up, knowing that the three women are obviously like, going to enjoy his company. So I think it was like, yeah, Jacqueline's identity as a celebrity afforded her a certain amount of just freedom to kind of do whatever she wanted.
Take what she wants.
Yeah. And that's probably what I was picking up on the two other girls, like the way they were talking to her in the comments. Like, this is the girl that, like, I'll put it this way. In the first season of White Lotus, we see Sydney Sweeney's character, Olivia, with
her friend.
I forgot, Paula.
Yeah, and she goes after.
Yes. Yeah. If Olivia,
oh man,
if we were to go back and if we were to see Olivia 20 years later, I feel like Olivia would be Jacqueline.
Oh yeah, they made the same moves.
A similar move.
Yeah,
right.
Moves,
using their feminine wiles to like get what they want.
Yeah.
And so to the obvious detriment and to like the disadvantage of
that's a good point.
Her friends. Yeah. So her friends are kind of like, there she goes again, like, and just let her do her thing. But it's kind of like that fun friend you have. Like, she's super fun, and then they end up getting into this fun, sexy pool party situation. But then the more responsible friend at one point is like, okay, we're done now. I think it's time to go to bed now, guys. Like, so you can see the dynamic from their former lives coming into the adulthood dynamic, which is really fascinating. So initially, too long didn't read because you asked me like 20 minutes ago, like what I thought about them. I actually thought they were extremely boring at the beginning. Super boring.
So did I. Yeah, I wasn't interested.
Let's move on.
But like we were saying, like the host at the resort said, everyone's going to change by the end of this trip. And I feel like these three friends did, because later in the season, there's an episode where they're all sitting around dinner. It's a great scene. And she says, I think it's Lori says, your friends ground you. And, she's been sad all week. She has no belief system. She tried love. It didn't work out. She tried being a mother. It didn't save her either. But she's found meaningful relationships with her friends. So they're the ones that ground her. And you can see how thankful she is with her friendship, who's she's found meaning in this friendship. Yeah. By the end, which is great.
Beautiful. And that scene is so beautiful. And I think that.
And they're all happy to be at the table by the end. Yeah.
Yeah. It was nice to see them end that way. I really liked that.
Yeah.
I think that's a big time contender for, again, a lot of awards contention for Carrie Coon for that whole speech that she gives there.
Oh, it's an amazing scene. Yeah.
Great scene.
She could be, she could get.
I think we'll see. I think so. The Emmys are in September, if I'm not mistaken. I think we're gonna see half this cast get nominated. Carrie Coon, if she's not among them, I will be extremely surprised. That one scene right there, that's the scene that's a great scene. Calling it now. That's gonna be the clip for the Emmy.
It's one of my favorite scenes of the whole season. Yeah.
It's a great scene. There were so many great scenes. Like,
there's a lot.
Yeah.
Also, Parker Posey. She's probably gonna in the running for an Emmy as well.
Parker Posey is definitely gonna be in there for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, since we're talking about favorite scenes, like, let's get into that as well. So you mentioned the dinner scene with the friends.
Yeah.
What other scenes were you digging in this round of White Lotus?
This is probably my favorite scene. It's not a long scene, but it's when it is later in the season when Chelsea is talking to Saxon, and you can tell that Saxon likes Chelsea, in this scene, and then Chelsea has been worried about Rick in Bangkok. Rick comes back from Bangkok on the beach, and she makes direct eye contact with him, and she runs to him, and then he gives her a big hug, and you can see the emotion between the two in that scene, and I thought that was a beautiful scene. Yeah,
it was. Yeah,
That's one of my favorite. Yeah,
definitely one of my favorite scenes, and also simultaneously, my heart was breaking for Saxon in that moment because
he's,
I could see just the whole like life draining out of his face as he's like, And he's probably not used to not getting the girl too. That's
Yeah,
the other thing.
exactly. But he has matured at that. He's done a bit of maturing by that point, and he realizes like how he should talk about women, how he should
Hmm.
look at women as well,
Yeah,
and not just a sexual object, right? So he's learned a lot at that point, and but yeah, he's obviously butthurt about that. Yeah,
definitely, definitely.
in
Oh,
his
oh, whoops.
feelings. Yeah,
Yeah, I was
he's
gonna
in his
say, speaking of
feelings.
butt hurt,
Yeah.
we'll get we'll get to the brotherly love scene because we're talking about favorite scenes, and I,
We were going to talk. I wanted to talk about taboos of this season,
hmm,
and that's one of the taboos. There's a lot of themes. I feel like there's a theme of taboo in this season as well.
okay, let's pull
Yeah.
on that thread a little bit.
Okay.
Let's go there. I mean, we're inching our way. Thank
Yeah.
God. There's so many little like little moments where Mike can make you a little bit uncomfortable. He plays with
Mm,
subversion.
I was real uncomfortable. All
Yeah.
right, not a
So
little uncomfortable. I was real
okay,
uncomfortable
say
from the
touch.
first episode between the brother and sister when I felt that they he wanted to be in the same bed
Yeah.
as her. I was like, I don't know about that. That that was weird and uncomfortable, I should say. Then, I mean, yeah, Saxon, and they're in the threesome. They get in the three. Well,
Yeah.
what is it?
The full moon party.
It's a
Yeah.
yeah, the
All
full moon
aboard.
party.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's when
Mhm.
they do all the drugs.
Yep.
They do all the drugs, and um, what happened in Thailand doesn't stay in Thailand because
Yeah.
it's an awkward morning after the full moon party. That's for sure. Yeah,
Yeah. Why was it so awkward, Drew?
that was one of the most shocking scenes I've ever seen. It's definitely, I think, it's the most shocking scene in all the three seasons of White Lotus when his things get a bit blurry during that moon party. Things get a little blurry. You're not
Mhm.
sure who's doing what to who at one point.
Yeah.
Then you see that, um, Saxon's not pleasing himself. He's getting a handy from his younger brother. All
Yeah.
right, Lachlan.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's very much a people pleaser. You learn about Lachlan as a people pleaser this season.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very much a people pleaser.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He aims to please. He certainly aims to
So
please.
that was that was a definitely awkward next morning for that family.
Yeah. That's you. You know, I imagine you look at yourself in the mirror a little differently the next day when your brother jerks you off. But I did find, yeah, that scene was really shocking. Like you're
Yeah.
right, it was the camera work was also like actually kudos to yeah
Yeah, I wish I could unsee that.
yeah it's yeah, it's really it is shocking. I mean, okay, so first and foremost, the idea that they're having a threesome, we see them start to get into the idea that something might happen. I think very early on, seeds are planted. There's
Yeah,
a sort of innuendo.
it was heading that way.
It's heading that
Sure.
way. We know
Yeah.
it's in the mail. Something's going to happen here.
Yeah.
So I was kind of thinking, okay, something's going to happen here. Or like Lockie might be into his brother if he's exploring his own. Like my mind is thinking, is Lockie unsure of his own sexuality? Is he's attracted to his brother? He was checking his brother out at one point. And I remember thinking there was a scene definitely where
Like, why is he pushing his brother to be so sexual? So,
yeah.
I didn't understand
At
that. Yeah.
first I thought it was about that,
Yeah.
and then maybe it just became more about like I look up to my brother and I want like to be like my bro and I want him to respect
He
it and
wants to
like
get him
see.
laid, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And well, he did, and maybe he got exactly what he asked for. He
Yeah.
got his brother laid, and his brother, as you said, is a people pleaser, aims to please, and
Yeah.
didn't want him to feel left out.
Right.
So when I'm watching, I'm thinking, oh, okay, his brother is in, voyeuristically getting off on
Yeah.
this situation.
He's just being
I thought,
thoughtful.
okay, I
Right.
mean that's something. Even that alone, I was like, wow, that's fairly, that's something. But then to your point, when we really see what's going on, it's I don't think I've ever seen that on television. I don't think I've
No.
ever seen the implication of that on television.
That was wild.
It was wild, and I think that was for me, as you said, along with the snake bite scene, I listed as my the brotherly love scene as the most shocking scene. So definitely moved the plot along. And as I said, I think Saxon probably also maybe started to um, feel differently about some of his choices the next day in the light of the day.
Yeah.
I don't know if something like that can happen and not make you think. But it was a really, 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 yeah, just kind of just I don't even know what to say even now. Like kind of a shocking jaw to the floor scene. Another scene that I would be remiss not to mention that was
Mhm.
extraordinary was, and I think it's episode 6, but I'm not quite sure because I think episode 6 is the full moon party in question. But the episode where we get the walk on, Rick in Bangkok meeting his buddy from back in the day,
Yeah.
and then we get the walk on from the one and only Sam Rockwell. Okay. Fresh out of the monastery, excuse me,
Hmm.
that he's been staying in to help Rick with his master plans of revenge. And Sam Rockwell's monologue, which I also believe is going to be another one of those in the Emmy package. It completely floored me, and just I had the same reaction as Walton Golding's character the entire time he was speaking.
Hmm.
I thought it was so good. It was absolutely scene stealing. One of my favorite scenes, absolutely. I love the idea that he kind of went to Thailand, not really, again, sure of who he was. There was another identity crisis. He decided maybe he would sleep with a bunch of women to work his way through it, and then ends up deciding that maybe he doesn't just want to be with these women, but he wants to be a woman. So, very interesting
Yeah,
turn of events
that
there.
that was a shocking scene as well, and
Hmm.
it went down. He went down a rabbit hole
Yeah.
during that monologue, and I didn't expecting it to go that way. It started off, in a certain way, then it took a weird turn. Yeah,
It definitely took a
it took a
turn.
different turn, I should say. Yeah,
It did take a turn.
yeah,
Yeah,
took a dark turn.
it
Yeah,
took a dark turn.
yeah,
One of my favorites, though, and again, like also bookended with Sam Rockwell at the end, before Rick goes back to the White Lotus. Uh, you can see Sam Rockwell the morning after, like in his tidy, not even tidy whities. I think he's just in like, whatever. He's in his little briefs and he's shadow punching or shadow boxing
yeah,
like a mannequin and stabbing it
yeah,
like a harem of like beautiful Thai ladies like doing lines around him. And so it just showed how unhinged this guy was when he gets down. Like it was wild. And a
yeah.
question I have for you,
He goes on. He goes on some
he
benders.
goes on some benders. So my question is this, like if he is at the end, he goes back to the monastery. I'm just wondering, do you think that that's how do you think that was a momentary lapse because his friend asked him to, participate in this scheme, or do you think that Sam Rockwell's character
Yeah.
like goes on and off the wagon like that? So when we see him,
And Frank, yeah.
I'm not even drinking chamomile tea. Then we go to the meet and greet with Rick's father and
Hmm.
Shrutala. The first sign of trouble is that Sam Rockwell does have a drink. Then he has
Yeah.
another drink,
Yeah.
right? And then we see the next part being okay, uh, he's obviously kind of tweaking out and
Yeah.
he's out of control, full blown.
Yeah.
But then at the end, we see Sam Rockwell back in the monastery, doing his Buddhist thing. So I was wondering in that moment myself,
Hmm.
is he actually just like he's good, like he's back again, he's back on track, or is that his pattern? Does he go on and off like that?
I think he goes off the rails.
Mm,
I don't think he's back for good, but who knows, I think he just goes off the rails sometimes. I think that's
his pattern.
his
That's just what he
pattern of
does.
behavior. Yeah. I think, what do you think?
I mean, I asked you the question. I should probably have an answer locked and loaded myself, but I don't know. I think because I'm even asking you the question, there's some doubt in my mind that that's like he's consistently just in the monastery. I
Yeah.
kind of thought, oh, so he probably goes off on these benders every once in a while, and then he goes back and just sort of the way that,
I feel like he gets triggered by something and then he goes off on another
and
bender.
then he goes back in
Yeah.
a similar way that like you think about religion. and it being this way to absolve yourself of your sins.
Yeah.
Like, so you go and you find Jesus, absolve yourself of your sins, and then maybe go right back to your ways, your sinning ways. I think that's what I saw in this. That maybe we're wrong. I don't know. And any of our alchemists listening want to chime in on this, let us know. But it'd be interesting to see if this is like his pattern. So yeah,
I feel like he has like I think there's someone says this line. It might be it might be a monk in the monastery. He says solutions are temporary. Quick fixes create more anxiety, and there's a lot of quick fixes that happen in this season too. And I feel like he has his quick fixes. Yeah,
well said. I feel complete with that. That's
This
open and
is
shut.
one of his quick fixes when he's triggered by something.
Yeah.
And then he'll try and
Yes.
go back, to the monastery
Huh.
and just chill out for a bit, but then something will trigger him
Huh.
and be off the rails again.
Yeah,
As a
that's
quick fix. Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense to me, and that's really that's a great line as well too. I actually really think the monastery, there's so many wonderful things that we saw there. Like even when the father goes on behalf of Piper and he sits there and the Buddhist monk is telling him,
those are great scenes. Yeah.
Really, really powerful scenes. And even at the end, this might be similar scene to what, I'm not sure if it's from the same monologue that you're pulling from, but at the very, very end, there is an open scene where we get a voiceover of one of the monks talking about like there is no resolution.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think in hindsight, looking at the opening and then looking at the full series and then looking at the end, and especially keeping in mind people's gripe about they're not feeling like there was a resolution. Like some people were not satisfied. They didn't get their happy ending, much like Saxon did. So it's kind of like, was Mike White just telling us like this is exactly what it is? Like there is no resolution, guys.
Yeah.
And I think that's done really well. So the Buddhism throughout and peppering in some of those like tenets of Buddhism, I think is so well done.
So
and
powerful.
So powerful. And so that's something I really enjoyed, but maybe that's also something that if some people were just not here for that aspect of it, I mean, it's easier to package season 2 and sex sells versus like the slow pacing of like, basically hanging the season on religious kind of dogma. That's harder to sell some people. So I do wonder if like the audience, considering all of the criticism, if that was one of the things that people just weren't into, because religion is one of those things that is so immediately polarizing. So if you took this thing to another audience in a different part of the world, maybe they'd be like, oh, actually, if we took this thing to another part of the world where they were obviously based in the show, that probably might also not go over so well either. But I think in spite of the fact that a lot of really weird things happened in Thailand, I do think Mike White has a lot of respect for the places in which he films and does show a lot of the, I guess, some of the more radical aspects of the culture, but also I think he frames the culture in really beautiful ways as well, and does introduce us to some other characters that we haven't spoken about yet.
Yeah,
we should probably get into because they also have some interesting parts to play, supporting parts to play in this whole drama. He does introduce some locals, namely Mook.
Yes.
Mook, played by Lisa, right? The pop star and the K-pop star. And then also, I want to say Guy Talk. Guy Talk. Thank you. Guy Talk. And Guy Talk being the world's worst security guard.
He's not the best.
He's not the best. I fear for Sutula at the end because if he is the main security at this point now, she'll be dead within a week, I think.
Oh, yeah. He's not the best at his job. These two characters, I don't know if I was really engaged with them during the show. I mean, it's interesting. Their relationship was interesting to me, but I wasn't as engaged, I should say, as the other characters. Or invested, I should say, in the other characters. But And I wanted to ask you about the relationship because, at first it seems like, they're courting each other. It seems
Mm.
very sweet. And, but there's also an element later on when like he has a conversation with her about, he's thinking about, obviously his job is not going well.
Yeah.
He loses his gun. All right.
Yeah.
Well, his gun gets stolen, right?
Yeah.
And then he gets robbed also.
Yeah.
And,
Bad day.
things aren't going so well.
Mm.
And so he thinks about going back to the monastery or going to the
Yeah.
monastery and leaving this job. And she's not a fan of that, it seems. She's like,
Mm.
she wants his identity to be in this job and to be a provider and a protector.
Mm.
And it seems when he loses that part of his identity, she's not as romantically interested in him as she was before. That's what it seemed like to me. What did you think?
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
and I didn't like that. I didn't like that.
yeah, you nailed it. Mook sucks, man.
Yeah,
I
right?
actually thought she was the worst.
I was like,
It's funny how that.
I didn't like that.
No, I did
Yeah.
not like that at all. It was a
Yeah.
bad look. And at first, I agree with you. I was like, oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, I
They're
thought they
so
were just
sweet.
like courting each other. And it was
Yeah,
very
like, oh,
romantic storyline. I
yeah.
was like, okay, I like this.
And
And then she was like, I
yeah,
don't
I think
think
for
like
me,
that.
it was at the fight.
Yeah,
At
okay.
the fight when she started to then, sort of almost coax him into choosing violence. It
Yeah,
seemed unnecessary. And I was like, why would she? But she did seem to really, as you
very
said,
un-Buddhist of her
very.
also. Yeah.
And you're right. She was kind of looking for a certain type of man.
Yeah.
So, like you mentioned earlier, too, I'm now really making this connection that this idea of masculinity and toxic masculinity was
Yeah.
present with the family, with
And
the men.
making money and being a provider
Yeah.
and
Mook
providing security.
totally. And Mook presented another perspective as to how it gets conditioned and ingrained in men to do this. I mean, she's a beautiful woman, so it's like, of course,
especially in different cultures.
yes, in this cultural context, it's like if she is saying, "This is what I'm looking for. This is how I see masculinity."
Yeah.
Right, and he doesn't fit that mold. Well, what happens at the end? He actually gave into some of the. Well, he basically gave up his principles.
Yeah, he did.
Right,
Yeah,
to get the girl in the job. So it speaks to like how prevalent it is across culture as well, too. Whether Mike White intended to make that comment or not, but Mook was the worst. I actually found those two initially quite boring, and then I was kind of like, why are we here? What's the point of these two? But I do think towards the end, because as you said, guy talk losing the gun, and then
he didn't understand the assignment.
No, he was not a great security guard. And he's also kind of, again, tested multiple times when he knew Valentine and his friends were the ones who stole, did the robbery on the resort property.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say anything. And so I'm wondering, from your perspective, why do you think he didn't say anything? Why don't you think he ratted on Valentine and the two guys who robbed the jewelry store?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think he was I think he was afraid. Maybe. I think he was just like afraid of at that point, realizing things are not going well for him. He was probably thinking, another career choice, or I think he was just afraid of losing any type of position, at that point. Yeah. And it would probably reflect that on him too, as well. So that's probably why he's already, fumbled the bag multiple times.
Yeah, totally.
And he didn't want to fumble it again.
Totally. Yeah.
At that point, yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. I'm good with that. I'm complete now. I was kind of wondering, like, why wouldn't he? But then there was the part of me that thought about, like, the principle of him being a Buddhist and not wanting to do any harm.
Oh, maybe that's it too.
And then Valentine, kind of like saying, like, if you tell, then we're gonna get deported and lose everything. And then, right. So I think just knowing that, I think probably put Guy Talk in a position where he felt like, well, I don't want to cause any more harm than necessary.
Yeah.
So I'll just let it go.
Yeah.
But I also think what you're saying also makes sense too, is that, it's like you're sitting on all this information for a while. It's like, and you say something, and it's like, okay, you're really bad at your job, bro. Like,
Yeah.
dude, like it may not have
Yeah.
been
Like,
as well received as maybe I'm thinking. Like, you could be the hero and like but actually, the whole house of cards tumbles if you lose Valentine, who's like the prize stud of the
yeah.
White Stallion, and then yeah, there's a lot of other things he's probably considering as well too, including Mook, the worst. But yeah, I again, um, men start wars over women, so this is a powerful thing indeed. And so we talked guy talk, we talked Mook.
Yeah. There was also another storyline which I wanted to ask you
Yes,
about.
yes, yes, yes.
Is is Porn Shy
Porn
and
shy,
Belinda?
yeah.
So they
Mm,
be Belinda was probably my favorite character
yeah.
of the first season. Um, and now she's back in this
Mm,
season, and they begin like a they begin a relationship.
mm-hmm.
Belinda and Pornchai.
Yeah.
What did you think of their
Of
relationship?
the relationship,
Yeah, and
that was lovely.
and Belinda in this season,
I thought it was lovely. I liked
and
this
her son
relationship.
too.
Yep. Oh yes, Zion. We got a
Another, yeah, Zion was a new character this season too. We
yeah,
haven't
cool
talked
character
about.
too. I liked Zion actually.
I thought it was great,
Liked how he handled
and
business,
he
man.
had very limited scenes, but he was very memorable.
Yeah, real
Yeah,
scene stealer. I think
yeah,
he
he
really
was. Yeah,
really ate the scenes that he was given. I loved Belinda and Pornchai because I thought their relationship and their whole dynamic was really sweet. Like it
yeah,
was kind of like and actually I'm kind of glad Belinda was given a love interest and given
and she has one of the best quotes of the season, which is,
Belinda. Oh
"You
yeah.
really know how to treat a burnt out bitch." That's one of my
Yes.
favorite
Yeah,
quotes.
it's a good
Yeah,
one. It's a good
yeah,
one.
that's a great
It's a
quote.
good one. It's a
Yeah,
great one. And yeah, it's a great quote. And I really love the dynamic between them. And I think that Belinda she needed a little bit of loving, and
yeah,
I
she
actually really
did after.
I liked that for her. And
Yeah,
I liked Porn Shy too. I mean, we'll get into the whole ending for Porn Shy as well.
yeah,
Maybe in a moment, because I have some, maybe my feelings about it, but I, yeah, I liked the scenes between them. They felt like, the innocence that I felt was lost with Mook and Guy Talk, that was like that I thought was there, that was not there,
yeah.
was there with them.
I like their innocence. I
Yeah, it
did.
was
Yeah.
like that was the thing that I thought was really cute with them. Yeah.
I had a question. Why do you he liked her and he wanted to start a spa with her,
Yeah.
but she ended up not starting the spa with Panchai. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, we see in season one. I
Yeah.
mean, she Tanya'd him, man.
Oh, you
She
think so?
Tanya'd him, right?
Okay.
I mean, right? Because like,
Yeah.
isn't it funny how,
Yeah.
hey, what's that saying they say about money, man? Money, money corrupts absolutely every single time. And I'm not suggesting, actually, let me say this. First season, for those who didn't watch the first season,
Yeah.
Belinda works at the resort, has the magical miracle masseuse hands, and becomes Tanya's, the rich woman at the Lotus.
Mhm.
She becomes a almost like spiritual advisor for Tanya, and then
Yeah.
because of that, Tanya decides to help her set up her own spa because she believes in Belinda's healing powers so greatly,
Mhm.
and offers her the world in the form of her own spa and the money to start it up. And at the end, of course, Greg sweeps Tanya off her feet, and then because she gets a man, Tanya decides to leave the Lotus and then no longer has the ability to work with Belinda to get her spa up and running, and has to apologize and leaves her in tears. So I thought it was very interesting to see that when push came to shove, and now Belinda, with the memory of what happened to her, now she is like, I mean, I'm talking crazy money, like
Mhm.
like 5 million reasons why she would do it. It's, to me, I don't want to make Belinda the bad guy because I don't think she did anything different than a lot of people would do. She herself said, things have changed. My circumstances have changed. And I think that that's what happens with extreme wealth. Your options change.
Mhm.
And I think that when she had different options, she wanted to, as she said, just enjoy being rich for a second without
And she
having
actually
to.
says that at one point.
Yeah,
Just let me be, rich for
yeah,
one
just
minute,
enjoy it,
you know? Yeah.
and also too, and I don't blame her on this front too, like if she is a little bit afraid of what Greg is going to do, then it does make sense for her to, like, I don't know, hightail it out of there. Like, well, I'm not going to stay here. Let's get the hell out of here. So I think in knowing that, one could say, well, why don't you bring poolside with you? She could have, but also she just met this guy. So who knows? From her perspective, she might have been like, yeah, I want to
Yeah.
go and just do something for me, not dependent on anybody else, not thinking about anybody else. She's been spending her whole, presumably, at least the last few years that we've known her as a character, she's been catering to other people's needs. So finally, she
Mhm.
gets the power. She's empowered by the money to do whatever she wants to do. And it's like, yeah, let me just go and do me. And I would love, in a perfect world, in my sort of rewritten ending in my mind, she goes back and gets porn shy, and they start a White Lotus in like a different location, and maybe that's season 5 or
Yeah.
season 6, or I would love to see them have some kind of continuation. I really liked them together, but that's life. I mean, I think that's what actually
Yeah.
happened, is that she just decided, I'm going to do me, and money changes things for people. It does.
And I like that scene with Belinda and Zion negotiating with Greg.
Yeah,
That was a great scene.
great
Yeah,
scene.
that was a great one.
Great
Yeah.
scene. I love that. Yeah, I love that. And I think there's also, you know, a lot of scenes that happen. You mentioned earlier, like the water being symbolic potentially as well,
Yeah,
right?
like, and also they mention the monk mentions is because when the smoothie scene, when the son drinks the smoothie,
Hmm.
and he basically dies at that point, but he goes into the water,
Oh
and the
yeah.
monk says that's what happens to you in the afterlife. You return home, so the water is returning home, and that's also probably why the family
Mm.
is looking at the water. They're at peace now, and they're at home after all they've gone through. Yeah, so I just like that aspect of it. What happens to you when you move on, when you pass on, is returning home into the water.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really beautiful.
yeah.
Really, really beautiful. And I like that too. And it's like, even just thinking about it in terms of, like, we all originate from someone, some
Mhm.
mother, right? Like, we come into this world like lunged from water,
Yeah.
right? And so I do
We
think,
come into this water through this world through the water,
yeah,
right? Yeah, and
yeah.
we're made up of water,
Yeah,
right?
so I do
So
think there's a special relationship
yeah,
with water,
yeah.
and I think that that's really beautifully shown here. But yeah, there was
There's also another scene which I really like too. I just wanted to mention
mhm.
uh, with uh, with uh, Frank and Chelsea. So later on in the season, when Frank is finally confronts the murder of his father, and he's baiting him to, saying that, talking about his father and his mother in a very disparaging way.
Oh,
That
yes,
scene is
yes.
very powerful.
Okay, so Rick and Chelsea. Rick
Yeah,
is back.
Rick and
Yes.
Chelsea. That's what I meant. Yeah. So Rick and Chelsea, when Rick finally confronts the guy who killed his father,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
is talking disparagingly about his mother and his father. And he does at that point take the high road, but he's like
Mm,
very conflicted.
mm.
And what Chelsea says to him is, stop worrying about the love you didn't get and focus on the love you did get.
Right, which I mentioned earlier,
That's
right?
one of the,
Yeah.
I love that scene. That's one of my favorite scenes in the whole
It's a
show.
great
Yeah,
scene. It's a
yeah,
great line as well,
yeah.
because
It's a
it
great
really
line. Yeah.
kind of tells us Rick's whole deal,
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
in one
That's
sentence.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a really interesting scene. Were you surprised? So since we're at that point of the story,
Hmm.
let's stay with that for a second, because I did think that was a really interesting scene. Well, one, I thought it was a little bit interesting that, like, after trying to murder somebody, going back to their hotel and then sticking around for the buffet. Um,
Yeah.
but I guess it must have been a pretty good spread. I probably wouldn't have done that. I probably would have left.
But why didn't
But
he just stay like that? Why did he? First he takes the high road, and then he ends up,
yeah,
getting consumed again.
were you surprised by that? Were you surprised how it
I
ended?
was. I don't know. I was because I liked the relationship so much. I like
Mm.
those characters. I wish it didn't end that way, but it's almost like it's the tragic, it's so tragic. It's almost like Romeo and Juliet way to end it,
I was, yeah,
Yeah.
thinking Romeo and Juliet as
Yeah.
well. I was thinking it's like this ill-fated love.
Yeah.
You know it's not going to end well, and you kind of sense it
But I
very.
kind of wanted him. I was like, good. He took the high road. Maybe
Yeah.
this is going to be end well for both of them, but it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and I think for me, I knew the minute that Hollinger, his actual father, when he
Mhm.
flashed the gun in the, I thought,
Yeah.
oh, there's the Chekhov's gun. Okay, so like
Yeah.
that's the gun that's going to go off because throughout the whole series, we see a number of guns. The
Mhm.
guide talk gun,
Yeah.
right? We see, I think there's another gun at some point, but anyways, we keep seeing different guns, and we know if you see a gun, okay, it's going off at some point. Like,
Yeah.
so when I saw his gun, I thought he's going to shoot that guy. I didn't know how it was going to come together, but to your point, once he started slagging off his mom, I was like, you come from the mom, man, like that's,
Yeah.
you just wrote yourself yeah, death certificate.
That's a kiss of death.
That is
Yeah.
not good. That is
Yeah.
not good. This guy is honestly, he's a little bit unhinged right now.
What did you say about my mama?
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was pretty
You don't
much
cross that line. Yeah.
no, you don't cross that line. And
Yeah.
I did think, okay, this is being shown for a reason. We're going
Yeah.
to see this come back, and we also know there's a massive shootout that's about to happen, and it's obvious that there's going to be someone's
Shit hits the fan in the
yeah,
end. That's
definitely
a wild shootout. Yeah.
it is, and I think I mean, there's a lot of things you could say about the shootout and stuff, but I guess at the end, one of the things that people were really focused on is the end for Rick and Chelsea, the yin and the yang of them holding hands, kind of floating alongside each other in the water. And even as morbid or as like sad as that was, I thought that was also a really beautiful way to show. I just thought something really beautiful about that, like that they actually were together. So even though
they're together in the end,
in the end they are together, like and I think that's I don't know, something about when Chelsea ran after him, when she saw the Collinger crew chasing Rick, and then she gave chase. It was that moment that I was like, if she had made a different choice at that moment, she might still be alive. But it was also that moment that, I knew she was going to die. And we saw, as we said before, like, the foreshadowing throughout the series. But yeah, it was just those little moments. And I think sometimes in life, I always think these little moments, like if you did one thing differently, like the whole outcome would have been so different, but you can just never know. And that scene, was a really interesting one. I, since we're talking about Chelsea as well, like I know we talked about some of the favorite scenes and some of the favorite characters in the past, but I think we do need to circle back to Victoria Radcliffe, because this character, lots to say, lots of great quotes, and I definitely want to hear some of your faves from her. But one of my favorites too, I definitely loved every minute she was on screen. Parker Posey was like a revelation. And I just want to get your thoughts overall on what did you think about this character in general, and what were some of your favorite quotes from her? Because she was just like paying off like a slot machine. She was just so good.
Oh, she had so many. She had so many like viral quotes. One is, I don't know if I'm able to live at this age and a comfortable life. I don't know if I have the will.
Yeah.
That's like all over TikTok as a viral quote. And it's just, that's one of my favorite quotes. Yeah. She has another one, which is, she's talking about, to her daughter about who tells her she's going to join this monastery, and she's like, might as well go play a bongo in Times Square.
Yeah, that's a great quote.
I was like, that is hilarious. Yeah.
It's a great quote.
I was like, what?
Yeah, I love that quote. That's a great quote.
Yeah. So that's another one of my favorite.
That's a good one. I love that. Yeah, I actually wrote, so like, okay, so they're all but one. So okay, they're weird. Like when just the way she said it, like I laughed and laughed and laughed, because like that scene that we're talking about when she's trying to understand, like, why would Piper want to stay here at this monastery? Why do you want to stay with these people? Like when she says that, not about anyone specifically, but just about like the entire, I guess, Buddhist community at the monastery. Like, they're weird. The way she just drawl on weird just made me laugh so hard. And when she finally says, okay, fine, well, if you're going to stay here, then we're going to go and we're going to talk to that Buddhist guy. He better be the best damn Buddhist in China. And like, I'm just like, just incredible, just keeps on giving. And then again, it's like, you want to live in Taiwan?
Yeah.
So she has like no idea even where she is. It's just incredible. And this is her like a few days in lorazepam. So she's not even on the drug anymore. She's just like coming down from the withdrawal of like the constant use of the drug.
And she also says about her daughter, she needs to fear poverty like everyone else we know.
Yeah, right? Which is hilarious and also very profound. It says a lot about the psyche of, the community, and just generally about life. Just the scarcity mindset and how compelling it can be to get people to do all sorts of things, to live in fear, to live actually not taking a lot of risk even as well, right? Because we all want to be comfortable. So I think that's a really powerful line that she gave. It's also funny, but
and it's also interesting too, because the daughter, she brings her family here to join the monastery, and she thinks she wants this life, but she also goes through changes as well during the season. And at the end, she realizes she wants her creature. She wants her comforts, right? Like sleeping in that bed, having, not having abundance of food as well. That's something she is, not comfortable with going without.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't have organic,
right?
It's like
monastery. So she realizes that she's not about that life as she thought she was.
No, she's not. And funny thing is, like, you see at the beginning, she kind of is like very presented as a very prim, proper. She's basically covered up, and then at the end, I don't know if you noticed, like her wardrobe changed quite a bit.
Oh, I didn't notice.
Yeah, if you go back and you watch it, like, and she's no longer sort of just like covered up, but like she's wearing like a spaghetti strap dress, like, short little dress, and you can see that, okay, so she's not really hanging on to that idea, that identity that she felt was so important to her before. Now she just said, as you said, no, actually, I'm not about this life. I'm just going to revert back to something else. And funny thing is, I did clock that, she kind of looks a little different how she styled herself today. And I did hear someone speak about this, that it was apparently a scene that was cut from the final episode. I don't know if you heard about this, but like her and Zion were supposed to hook up.
Wow.
It was the cutting room floor. Mike White decided at the end of the day he didn't really see how it fit, but apparently after she left the monastery, and then had that whole about face where I'm like, no, I'm actually not actually this this super Buddhist woman. I just need to go get laid. That's actually was part of the script. Was I heard the actress who plays Piper talking about this, Sarah Catherine Hook, that the idea was that she would then have a reaction to to losing that part of her identity and her sense of self, and then as a result, actually, in a way, kind of switching places with Saxon, and then realizing
Saxon comments on that in the first few episodes.
Yes. And then she just goes, you know what, you're right. I don't want to go to college. There's a scene on the cutting room floor. She's like, I don't want to go to college, virgin. I've just got to go and sleep with someone. And she runs into Zion, and then they hook up.
Oh, wow.
But Mike White thought twice and said, you know what? I think people will think it's weird if they just suddenly hook up without any kind of real introduction, any kind of time to let the sort of flirting kind of marinate. Like if they just immediately have sex, it might change the tone of the show. So that's why she's kind of dressed like that. She's dressed like her hair is also kind of messy because she just had sex with Belinda's son. So that's literally the scene that we didn't see that was cut out before we see her.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So go back and watch it with that lens, and you'll go, oh, I see it now. And you can see even how she looks, kind of like she kind of has a look of like almost like a walk of shame or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, interesting, because I could see something was different, but I thought it was just because she realized that she was like fraudulent. So
it's also like a really like interesting like comment on travel too, right? Like um Piper thinks she's, about this culture and
Yeah.
this spirituality, but when she's in it, she realizes that she's not, and she needs that luxury.
Yeah.
And like when we go travel, like, do you need a lot of luxury, or like you want to go to these like,
Mm.
these amazing places, but you don't want to live like the locals live, right?
Right.
Or like
Right.
you don't want those things which are comforting you to be taken away also.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's just like it's very interesting to me that
Yeah. That's a great
comment on
point.
travel. Yeah,
That
yeah,
is a great point. It is a
yeah.
really,
Like, what can you live without? What can't you live without? Like, what do you covet, and what's
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a great point, actually.
yeah.
It's very true. Like it does say a lot about them, like what, and about us, right?
And
Like,
religion too. Like,
mm,
which should be coveted and which shouldn't?
yeah.
What's yeah,
No, that's a great point. And like
yeah.
obviously you can see that throughout all three of um the seasons,
Mm-hmm.
this idea around travel and how people view themselves and connect with the locals. And I think that's really interesting that you bring that up because yeah, there's like a point where you want to get immersed in the culture, but how much do you actually want to get immersed in the culture? Because there's always your one foot in and one
Yeah,
foot like in your villa, knowing you're in kind of a situation where you can be a tourist quite literally
yeah.
in their world, but you don't have to actually reside
Be
there.
in the yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
there's
Live
something.
like the locals live.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like kind of a
and
fun
really,
like ecotourism kind of
it's just like
vibe.
almost like dipping your toe,
Yeah,
but then not
yeah,
fully immersing yourself.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
in the
and
water. Yeah,
that's always a point of contention for people
yeah.
when it comes to traveling, especially to places that are developing.
Or like, yeah, all-inclusive resorts.
Yeah.
Prefer some people prefer all-inclusive
Mm.
luxury resorts, and some people like to go off the beaten path
Yeah.
when they travel.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and I don't know if there's a right or wrong. It's just, but you do get to know yourself a little bit better when you try and do either or. But I do. Okay, so I know that we've talked a lot about season three, and I'm sure I mean, there's so much more that we could talk about. But I guess is like um, we're winding down here. I do want to open it up and see if there's anything else that you really wanted to get off your chest when it comes to season three.
I think I really I think we covered it all. But my question to you is, I wanted to ask you, we've talked about all three seasons of White
Mhm.
Lotus, and our listeners can comment as well. What was your favorite season? And I want to know what your favorite season was.
Okay,
Yeah,
the power ranking.
yeah.
All
Let's
right,
do a
let's
power
let's
ranking.
let's do this. So, okay, um, from best to worst. Number one, my favorite.
Okay.
Okay. Number two and number three. One, two, three. And I'm saying that because I felt number one was really fresh, original. It was just really, you never forget your first. And I love the dramedy of it. I love
First
the,
season was your favorite.
oh, yes.
Wow.
Oh,
By
for sure.
far.
I was gonna say by far because it was the
Wow.
first. It was the it
Yeah.
was it, there was no White Lotus to I'd never seen anything kind of
Hmm.
like that singular lens of
Okay.
storytelling.
I was not expecting that.
Oh yeah, no, it was my favorite by far, and because it had the mix of both comedy and drama. Also because Armand is one of my favorite characters,
Mhm.
and it had Armand. It had, I think, a good mix of characters. I also want to say that that ranking, there is no worse for me. I don't think
Mhm.
there's any bad season because, as I said, I like season three. Season number two, I went back and forth between is it two, is it one? But again, as I said, the first one for me just set the table, and the second one was amazing. I felt like the drama, it stirred up a lot more of the drama, a lot more
Yeah.
of the intrigue. Obviously, it was, highly sexual, which is easier to sell, something like that. But the star of that season was also Italy. And
Mhm.
I think the setting was what really made number two quite incredible. But yes, I'm still going to put it in the middle. playing tug of war a little bit with number 1, but I got to go number 1 because I just loved it so much. And then number 3, I'm only putting number 3 in the third slot by default. I felt the build was intriguing. The spirituality theme I loved. I also loved a lot of the characters, like we just mentioned, Chelsea's wonderful, and then Victoria Ratcliffe. I think it had a very rich world, and I struggle saying it's the worst, but that's why I'm going to end it 1, 2, 3 for me. What say you?
Well, it's a tough. Like, there's no bad season.
Yeah.
I love this show. Every season's been so different from the previous season, and but I'm gonna have to say, second season is my favorite season. Yeah, just beautiful location, just really strong themes of like love and sex, and the relationship between the father and his father and the son as well, and the two girls who how they work their way into that family, and then all the relationships, just how it turns out in the end. And I just thought it was a beautiful season. I liked all the characters, and so I'm gonna have to say season 2 is my favorite. And then, you know what? This is a tough one. It wasn't at first because I wasn't the biggest fan of the early episodes of season 3, but season 3 is my second favorite.
Wow.
And the first season is my least
Bringing
favorite.
up the rear.
When you think about like what happens in season 3, and then the ending, like the shootout, my jaw was on the floor at so many points during season 3, like the smoothie scene, the ending shootouts, the shocking scenes, between the brother and so many other shocking scenes. Just like, great performances as well. Like, it's going to be hard to decide who should get the Emmy of season 3, and that's for a reason,
Yeah.
Then, first season was amazing too. Is like we're introduced into this whole new world and this great show, but I think when it comes down to it, that's the order I'm gonna have to put it in.
Okay, 2, 3, 1.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm surprised you put 3 so high, and I'm also pleasantly surprised because I agree with you. Honestly, I think it was a fantastic season, and that's why it pains me to put it last.
Intertwining with spirituality and Buddhism. I thought that was just brilliant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really cool.
No, I dig it. I think it's going to be one of those debates that's going to be long standing. I mean, it's a mile-long Reddit thread going through every season, making debates over, is it 2, is it 3, is it 1? Much respect. I like that you put 3 up there. It's a great season, and honestly, there's so much talk about. But I think what we'll do is we'll have to wrap up there because honestly, it will demand another watch. I think if we watch it again,
have to watch all 3 seasons again.
Yeah, we're going to see a whole bunch of other things too. And I'm also looking forward to seeing what comes next, because as of the time of this recording, we do know at least one place that showrunner Mike White is going, which is, believe it or not, he's going to be joining Reality TV Cast. He's going to be on the next Survivors.
Oh, wow.
So that's going to be
I did not know that.
Yes, he will be competing on Survivor. So that's going to be really interesting. Let's see if maybe any of the people who are on that season of reality TV end up in White Lotus, because he does tend to cast people that he's been on the show with before. So it'll be interesting if he takes inspiration from wherever location he's going to be out surviving in.
That is very interesting.
I do think it's really interesting, and I can't wait to see where we go next. But it's been a wild ride. All 3 seasons. I want to thank everybody for being here with us and sticking through for this amazing recap. If you do have any thoughts, any favorite quotes, shocking scenes, anything that we may have missed that you want to bring up as well, let us know. I'd love to hear from you guys. And I think, wow, we've really, I feel like, honestly, I don't have a passport on me, Andrew, but I feel like we've taken a journey.
Yeah, we have, yeah.
We've taken a journey, and all good things must come to an end. So I think we're going to wrap up here. But I guess let's let people know, where can they engage with us?
We want to keep the conversation going. Like us and follow us on Instagram at Culture_Alchemy.
Until next time, alchemists,
Stay
stay curious.